did a survey in 106 countries about the effects of the pandemic, and finding that 80% of them expected to reduce programming and 10% might permanently close. More information has come out since that, and I'm sure in your own experience and probably in your own perceptions, you assume that most museums were closed. We have a seasonal museum in the Outdoor Heritage Museum, and that is really the bread and butter of our business. So we focused on that. It was really important because it's our prime driver for our revenues. And revenues come from donations, memberships, sales in the gift shop, admissions, and of course, foundational support. So it was a real challenge. We decided very early on we were going to build a bare bones budget slanted towards surviving this great unknown. And I will say something that we took away from that exercise is we now know exactly by doing that exercise what it takes to operate at a minimum scale. And when we did that budget, we planned on flexing quite extensively. But the budget was built in a way that if there were changes, they'd be upward. And then we decided with that, above that, any revenues that we did experience when July and August turned around, we invested them in ways that could create positive imprints and impacts. We initially scheduled every event as we normally would. That quickly went out the window because we work with other partners like the Rangeley Friends of the Arts and their beautiful Lakeside Theater, and we had to move a lot of events outdoors. And in doing so, we had to keep them under 50. The previous year, we had hosted the International Fly Fishing Film Festival as a fundraiser. And the logical thing to do is to just have that go away. In fact, the International Fly Fishing Film Festival is held in a series of short films, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, over 150 dates in North America. Last year, they had 6 that they hosted because of the pandemic, but we hosted 3 of them in North America. And we did that by moving the events outside and adjusting and adapting and flexing. We charged a little bit more for the ticket and made it more exclusive. And we held it with our friends at Bald Mountain Camps, who were very supportive. Another real important factor that we followed, and my hat's off because I see that many people are on this call, for the local movement that was Rangeley Rises, that set the standard for how we as a community were going to address the pandemic. It was a wonderful guideline. It was a wonderful public event. It was publicly promoted through the internet, and folks were asked to sign a pledge. We also did, and it was very helpful, we also did events outside that we normally would have 35 vendors on our grounds. The Lupin Festival, the Aquatic Day Festival, and we added one, the Fall Fest. We added an event because we couldn't have 35 people on our grounds and meet the state guidelines. And when you think about all the people that are in the craft business, they spend a great time in the winter months creating all these goods to sell at these fairs, and they had no place to go. So we contacted all of them and gave them the opportunity to set up on the grounds any Saturday they wanted. And the first 5 that applied got those dates. And then the festivals themselves, we held to 10 vendors. So we were always underneath the guidelines. We slathered the goo and a face mask for you straight ahead. We did all the things that we were supposed to do. But it was very important for us very early on to decide that we were going to flex and take calculated risks. And you as entrepreneurs yourselves, at times you just have to take calculated risk and roll the dice. And I believe we got lucky in many ways. The last thing we wanted to do is become the big moose inn. Bless their hearts. Another big thing we did was we upped our staff engagement. It was never more important. We have over 30 volunteers, and we told them they couldn't work. So we had to replace 30 hours a week in our upfront hosting and then docent work in the museums. It was a difficult challenge, and it was met by myself and a UMF intern. But we had to fight for that intern as well because they canceled that program. So you kind of, I just didn't take no for an answer in a lot of places because we'd set that person up to come and work and they were willing. So we found a faculty member that was willing to be the contact for his credits. I've got more material than I could ever share in this time, and I've probably already gone over my 10 minutes, but the Rangeley community really stepped up in a big way. I'll read this from the Rangeley website, the Rangeley Rises website. The Rangeley community is resilient. We support each other in times of need. We encourage each other and celebrate together. And when times are tough, we double down and don't get discouraged. With every challenge we face, Rangeley rises. So my hat's off to the people that gave that encouragement and gave that guideline, and it helped us a great deal. I'll also say one thing, and I'm in the history business, but I was reminded when I read that in 1876, there was a fire that took half the town of Rangeley. And the fire got to about Haley Brook, and all they had in that time period was a bucket brigade. And everybody was out throwing pails of water on the fires, trying to slow it down. And then someone got the idea of, we need to go get everybody to bring their blankets. Well, in 1876, a blanket's a pretty important thing. They were handed down, quilts and crocheted blankets of all types. Renys probably would have sold you one, but they went and got their blankets and they soaked them in Haley Pond and they threw them over the building that was adjacent to where the fire would jump next. And the fire was stopped and half the town was saved. That's what people do in Rangeley and in Western Maine. And our donors and other partners and stakeholders stepped up in a big way and helped us out immeasurably. We actually had this, even when you take away the economic stimulus funding, we were fortunate enough because of the blessings of what Rangeley is and what the history means to Rangeley, that we actually are even with 2019 in revenues, despite 33% drop in admissions. I'll just stop there.
Bill, thank you very much for that. We can take some, if there's some burning questions now, we can take those and open the floor, give it a shot.
If anybody would like, I can email what I prepared for this. And of course, it kind of took off on me. I didn't share 10%, but I'd be happy to email what I have that may be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. So next up, let's hear from Travis Furland, hotelier of the Rangeley Inn.
Thank you very much, Charlie. And Bill, it's really nice to hear from you this evening, and hats off to you for everything that you pulled off this summer. We're big fans. So
Right back at you.
So I am the owner and operator here at the Rangeley Inn. I wear lots of hats, especially right now. Just very similar experience to what Bill has described. Going into this season, we saw some challenges and needed to tighten up the purse strings and figure out how lean the operation could be. And so the first thing I did back in March or April was to look at my budgets and to say, okay, what is the least amount of revenue I can survive on without going bankrupt? and then how do I adjust my budgets so that they work within that amount of revenue. And so basically I pared everything right down to a bare minimum, and then of course hoped for the best and was prepared to adapt accordingly if we ended up seeing more business. And very similar to Bill's experience, we ended up doing quite well. So it was a really good exercise in figuring out really how lean the operation could be, and then how we could adapt really quickly. I will say it was pretty exhausting for me because in a lot of cases I was the one who was picking up the extra work when we had a lot more business than anticipated. But also my core team of employees were just phenomenal. They understood the circumstances, and they were just really flexible and adapted along with everything as well. And I mean, they really carried us right through this. So I give them a lot of credit as well. We had to change a lot about how we operated. I was actually in the process of re-envisioning how we were going to operate our restaurant and doing some hiring for that. And the first thing I did is I said, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put that on hold. It didn't make sense for me to start something new in the current environment. So I decided to put that on hold. And then I had to figure out for our guests who were staying here, how are we going to get breakfast to everybody in a safe manner? We used to do a buffet in our dining room, and that was obviously not an option. And then on top of that, if it was hard to get people to actually do the kitchen work, which Rangeley was having a tough time with finding restaurant employees this summer, then how would I even staff it? So a couple of us who are already working here basically would be preparing breakfast and boxing it up and delivering it to rooms based on orders the evening before. So essentially totally streamline the system so that every night we know what our breakfast orders are going to be. We can map everything out, plan it accordingly, take stuff out of the freezer, just tried to streamline it so that I reduced the risk out of the operation, but also made sure that we could still accommodate what our guests were looking for. So that was one of the big changes. Also, I mean, I could take up the whole 10 minutes or maybe up to half an hour talking about the changes in how we do housekeeping. And so I won't bore you with that, but it was a huge game changer because we had to just completely change the way that we kept track of everything, how we staffed everything, how we prioritized the workload. So that was a big game changer as well. And then another thing that we're doing that I think has worked really well is we started doing a contactless check-in where we send an email to our guests the day before they're getting here. There's a link they can click. They complete their check-in online, including their state of Maine COVID compliance certificate. Complete all that ahead of time, and then it instantly emails them their arrival instructions along with their room number. That way, when they get to our property, they drive right to their room and there's a key waiting for them there. It was kind of a leap of faith because I knew that I wouldn't be able to check IDs and verify that, you know, there wasn't any fraud taking place or anything like that. But under the circumstances, you know, as Bill said, business people have to take some risks. And so we took the risk and it's actually worked pretty well. We haven't had any issues with fraud that I know of yet. So that was a big success as well. Took some time to figure it out, and it's still tough explaining it to people who aren't accustomed to it. But I think that, you know, it's become a lot easier for us at this point. And that's one of the things that I think will carry forward after this period, because it's actually going to be very useful for our guests who are arriving late in the evening, that sort of thing, or who just don't have a lot of time on their hands and want to be able to do a rapid check-in. So it's something we can learn from and use going forward. I think the biggest challenges for us were dealing with frustration of people who, just didn't want to follow any of the COVID guidelines from the state, whether it's the testing requirement, whether it's the quarantine guidelines, or just wearing a mask. That was really tough to deal with, particularly when we all knew how much effort we were putting in and what risks we were taking. Then to have people who couldn't wear a mask for 5 minutes, that was frustrating on both sides. But we worked through it, and I think people at this point now, a lot of people I think are more understanding of the circumstances, and we haven't had as many issues with that. I think that another big issue that we faced was just having to deal with some capacity constraints, whether we couldn't keep up with workload and we had to turn people away, or restrictions that I put in place on capacity so that we could follow safety guidelines. That was tough because no business owner likes turning away business. It just goes against your grain. But it's something that we had to do at times. Just checking my notes here. I really think that's kind of our experience in a nutshell. I will also mention Rangeley Rises as well. There was a group of us that kind of pulled together different parties this spring and we wanted to motivate people in town, and I think it really paid off. There were some folks who just had some phenomenal ideas for how to raise spirits in the community, and also fundraising for people who were in need back in the spring, and meal delivery to families, prepared meals that people could pick up if they wanted. So there was a lot that happened in Rangeley Rises. You can go to rangeleyrises.com as well, and there's a full breakdown of what the different initiatives were and all the participating businesses who took a pledge to safety, which I think was a big thing as well. So that was a huge success for the community.
Travis, excellent stories. Thank you. And as you point out,
Thank you.
people don't understand the work behind the scenes, and your housekeeping protocols and all of that. And kudos for being a problem solver.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, Polly McMichael from Rolling Fatties, you're up.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all. Travis, it sounds like your community really just wrapped everything together in such a lovely way. It must feel really great to have that support. That's amazing.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds awesome. So as a restaurant in March, when COVID hit, we were slamming. We closed on March 13th. And for, a month, we struggled with seeing what everybody else was doing and feeling a little intimidated by that, I will definitely say. Just seeing how everyone was adapting in such innovative ways was humbling for sure, and also struggling with, the safety measures that we wanted to take and how we felt about COVID as a business and so on and so forth. I mean, there was just so much to think about. So we knew we wanted to reopen for the summer, and so we tackled this sort of marketing and feel-good campaign by doing Free Fatty Friday. Does anybody remember that? And that was an idea that Rob and I came up with basically to make ourselves feel better, really. We miss being around people, and we knew that other people were feeling the same way. And so we started this campaign where that we would go and serve free fatties and hope that people that got these free fatties would then pay it forward. So we did it every Friday in May, and that was sort of our launch for our summer opening. So it was like a really safe way for us to get out, see everyone, do some trail work and some community building, and then also sort of launch our summer opening, which really wasn't that much of an opening at all. So over the summer, we were just open with our to-go windows. We amped up online ordering. We started an online market. We really just sort of pushed the social distancing, and that's really not how our business really operates. We're kind of warm and cozy here at Rolling Fatties. And so sort of pushing everyone away and really making a conscious effort to reduce gathering we didn't even put picnic tables out this summer, and it was really hard for us. And I think it was hard for our regulars and our locals too. But I think it was a good idea. I think we feel pretty confident now looking back on it that was the way to go. So online ordering became a thing for us, even though we've done that since we opened. Way back in 2014, you could actually order online, but not a lot of people used that. And now people are using it. It's overwhelming how many people are ordering online. So that's been great. Reopening this winter, nobody's allowed inside. We're still doing just a order window, a pickup window, ordering online. You can order by phone. We have a little intercom system here. The online market is still going strong, although not super strong, which is okay. But it's just sort of an add-on, I guess. We're hoping to push people to order a meal for today and then one for tomorrow that you would then cook yourself. Maybe if you come up to ski for the weekend or whatever, but that's been a learning experience. We've tossed around the idea of opening a market in what we call the joint, the little detached barn here at Rolling Fatties. So this was a really great way for us to try out that idea without committing to it and investing a lot of money. Because nobody's in here, we have a lot more space to use and utilize. So we have a bunch of locally sourced products that we're selling online in our market, and that's been a really cool experience for sure to sort of test that out and see how it goes, really. We reduced our hours also, which has been awesome. An unintended consequence. It's less exposure for us and our employees. It forces people to order within a certain time period and then pick up within a certain time period. But we closed on Wednesdays and Thursdays this winter, and that's been great. It has allowed us to take more time to do things that are healthier for us during COVID times, as we call it. Which means that we actually went skiing today, which was amazing. So that's been a positive for sure, getting more time off in the winter, which we haven't had in a few years. So yeah, the primary struggles, lots more online orders, which is weird because it doesn't look like we're busy from the outside, but on the inside, we are so busy. And I think that's actually a positive, and well, it's a negative because we hate making people wait and it's cold out and it's the wintertime or whatever, but it's also a positive because people drive by and they pull in because there's actually parking spaces available. So more people are coming up to the window as well. So not only do we have these online orders, we also have people calling and then coming by and ordering at the window during our open hours. Whereas before, people would just drive by and see the full parking lot and then say, oh, we're never going to get a table, or it's going to take forever, or whatever, So I think that's been a struggle for sure for us keeping up with orders and getting things out the door in a timely fashion, but also a success. Technology not working, always a stress, right? But we manage. I wish our internet were better here. We've had a lot of stress about keeping the awesome people that we work with, like, safe and happy. And at the beginning, that was definitely a struggle. We kept saying, just do whatever you're comfortable with, ask people, talk to people the way that you feel comfortable. We'll always support you. and then they would do that, but they're also our employees. They're trying to please us, right? So they're taking it upon themselves to make themselves feel comfortable and us feel comfortable. And at that point, we just had to step in and say, okay, we're not comfortable with that. We had to like be the bosses, which we're not so great at, for sure. Everybody's pretty independent around here, but stepping in and addressing things that were making us feel uncomfortable because people would be putting our employees in unsafe situations, really made a difference. So us like saying, no, that's not going to happen, you know? And like what you said, Travis, just dealing with people not wearing masks and things like that. That's a tricky thing, you know, but when we were confident about it and just said, you know, sorry, if you don't like it, you gotta go. That's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to do with like a smile on your face. But for the safety of the people that we work with and for ourselves, that became very necessary very quickly. We didn't have a lot of patience for that, so that was a pretty quick learning curve. Creating a lot of waste to go stuff. It creates so much waste, and that's a big stress for us. So I know that that's like a weird thing to mention, but it's for sure a thought that we have had. What is going on with all this to-go stuff? You know, where is it going and how is that affecting things? The last thing that I will say is a struggle is that Rob and I are wicked idea people. Like we think a lot, we have a lot of great conversations, and we have a million great ideas going all the time. And so picking one or two and then acting on them has been a challenge, or figuring out what to act on and what to sort of let go. And, you know, things are so unknown that just complicates the decision-making process that much more. So, I mean, not a whole lot of struggles, and a lot of our struggles have really turned into successes. The two greatest successes I think that we've had, the first is the people that we work with. Man, we got some good ones for sure. And we feel people's struggles who cannot say that. But we really feel like working with the people that we work with is a great success for sure. We just communicate really well. We have so much fun together, and that has helped us tremendously through this time for sure. The second cool thing that we count as a success is that not having people here at Rolling Fatties and like coming to see Rob and I. Rob is my partner and husband, for everybody that doesn't know. You know, sometimes during non-COVID times, we would think, are people just coming to our business to like say hello to us, or because they want to be supportive and not necessarily because they like our food or they like the beer or they like the atmosphere? You know, we always kind of had this question, are they just trying to support us as their friends, you know? And so taking the us out of our business, which is essentially what's happened because of COVID, has really just allowed us to look at our business in a different way and look at the potential of our business in a different way, because we realize that people are not coming here to see us. You know, because they don't see us. So there's no social interaction. There's no, I mean, we try, you know, when we see someone that we know, or someone leaves us a note on their ticket or whatever, we try to interact with people as much as we possibly can, but really, there's not a lot of that. And our business has been really busy, and it's all kinds of new faces. It's people that we don't know, and those people are becoming regulars, you know? So taking the us out of our business and sort of being able to look at it more objectively, I think has really allowed us to, have more ideas. So there's that, but, so yeah, that's us in a nutshell. It's been hard, but it's also been awesome.
Polly, wonderful recap. Great to hear the background. I'm one of those people that wants to come down and say hello, but you can't. So you just place your order and get the heck out. we're looking forward to the pandemic being behind us and being able to, for Rolling Fatties to get to grow into what it has been and beyond. So that's good learnings. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
So Joel from Barry's Fruit Stand, farm stand. What do you have for us, Joel?
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. So inspiring. Just hearing all the panelists here, and also just really honored to be with everybody and everybody listening. We're all doing this. We're all getting through it together, and we will all get through it together. And so I'm just really honored. You still there? Sorry, that was my daughter tripped over the cord. So we have 3 kids and they're beautiful. So a lot more beautiful than I am. Hang on one second or else we're going to lose power. All right, can you still hear me okay? Oops. You can. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're good.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. So I was just trying to think about where we've been, and I feel like every day is something new. And so I think the theme for me this year is the word pivoting, right? I think we've heard it all. That we've heard this with businesses have to pivot, so on and so forth. And I was talking to a business coach of mine, and I said, I feel like I'm pivoting so much that I feel like I'm getting seasick. I mean, like every day, I feel like there's a new challenge. There's something else. And so this evening, I just want to talk about 3 areas of pivoting that we've had to do. Pivoting to meet the need of our customer, pivoting to meet the need of our employee, and pivoting to meet the need of ourselves. And so, Polly, that was just really great. Hearing what you guys have done, and it sounds similar to like some struggles that we've had too. So pivoting to meet the need of the customer and products and inventory. I never thought I would be selling toilet paper out of the farm stand ever in my life, but we did. And we found that some of our suppliers, we were buying bulk items, and the town was having a hard time trying to find it in the supermarkets. We had some bulk supply, we would repackage or something just to get people through. And so just as, about a month of that, and then everything left, and we can't sell another roll of toilet paper. It just isn't going to happen, and so, there's different items too, in the produce world. We had flour and yeast and all that kind of stuff that we use in our bakery that we also repackaged and helped to meet the need. The delivery of goods, the internet, serving customers through curbside. We have had to really get our infrastructure digitally in progress, and kind of tighten up those. And everything happens so fast that I wanted to do some things better, but we just kind of had to do with what worked for us, rather than making everything really beautiful. It's like nuts and bolts. Here's our e-store. It's not real pretty, but it is functional. And so that's what we offered to our customers there. The other thing that I want to say, like pivoting to meet the need of the delivery of goodwill to our customers. We found, like, I would have people who come to our store, they would come in and, some elderly people just crying because they just don't have the social interaction with people. And so we found ourselves kind of trying to be in that place of just spreading goodwill, peace and joy, and just try to build community through even the way that we speak with our customers. That it would be, we'd just try to go the extra mile, sometimes even just to assure people that, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. We're here. Tell me your story. I'll take a minute. I'll hire some more people on so we can listen, and so then we pivoted to meet the need of the employee. And so flexibility, my goodness, you know, if one person calls out, you know, to get tested and or so on and so forth, we felt, my wife and I, who own the company, we just really felt strongly that we needed to, you know, we just need to be there to meet the needs of them, because they really are the ones that really help to make this whole thing work. And so they've been there for us day in and day out. We're going to be there for them as well. We've had to look at some redundancy in employee positions. From time to time, we've tried to say, all right, if this person isn't going to be here, we need to make sure that this person's going to be trained so that we can maintain operations, and just our understandability that we, we just have to give extra grace, extra kindness to our employees during this difficult time. So, and so finally, I end off with pivoting to meet the need of ourselves, the owners, Melissa and I, and my family, you know, and that is one area, like if I'm to be totally candid, that's one area that has probably suffered the most during this pandemic, is the fact that we've had to meet the needs of so many people, and whether it be customers or the needs of our employees, that sometimes we've like looked at each other. And I mean, like, you know, I'm going to tell you, sometimes with tears in our eyes, we're like, man, this is just so difficult. This is so hard, you know. And then there are other times where like, man, this is so good, you know, we're making a difference in the world. We're making a difference in our community. Our mission is to make life wholesome for families in the community that we serve. And so so this whole COVID pandemic has it has helped us in completing our mission and fulfilling our mission to our community. And then at the same time, it's been such a challenge too. So I encourage all of you guys out there who might be in the same situation of neglecting self-care and all that kind of stuff. The time is now. Go skiing, hug your kids, make that phone call, paint, write music, go play something, you know, but don't neglect yourself, because I question what happens out of this when COVID is fading and the public is ready to go. You know, Polly, I think you're going to have to just, you are going to be rocking and rolling up there. And all of you guys, the museum, Travis and Bill up there in Rangeley, just like, I'm telling you what, like, I'm going to Rangeley. I wanted to go up there many times this past year and I didn't, and I'm coming.
Oh, Joel, heartfelt, my goodness. Excellent, wonderful stories. And being able to overcome. Thank you. All right, let's move on to Adam. Adam Rennie, different model.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here and great to hear all of your stories. It's great to listen to what everyone else's challenges, because they're all different and they're all unique. So one of the hardest parts for me in the beginning was that I was the only owner in the state at the time that the pandemic hit. Everyone else is on vacation. Hopefully next time I'll be on vacation if this ever happens again. But that was really hard, because, you know, it's already hard to share the burden of responsibility of 500 employees and 16 stores. But doing that alone, being the only one on the ground, was particularly hard for me. You know, it all turned out well, thank God, knock on wood. So, I do remember having to tell my employees in the warehouse and office, got them all together, that we were closing. And we closed about a week before Mills closed everything down. And we didn't we don't think we actually had to close because we do consider ourselves as an essential business. We do have a lot of grocery and other stuff, but there's so much unknown with what was going on at that time. And we felt we couldn't make any good decision for our employees to keep them safe, other than just close down and figure out what to do next. So we decided to do that, let's take a break, let's figure out what we got to do and go on from there. And luckily too, we're in a financial position that we can continue to pay our employees through the whole thing, which we did. And I'll do it again in a second, because through this whole thing, you treat everyone right. They're going to do everything they can for you to keep your business going. And our employees are amazing. The people we have are amazing. And through this whole thing, they've been the brightest spot in this whole ordeal. But then, you close, and we had about a dozen people, some remote, some on site, that had to kind of keep the business going. We still had to pay bills. We still had truckloads of merchandise coming in. I myself was unloading a truckload of canned chicken. So on the forklift myself, we just have to do what you got to do. But it does, our philosophy is that we all have to know a little bit about everything, especially as owners. So luckily, I had already worked in the warehouse and knew how to drive the forklift. Otherwise, we probably would have gotten charged for the merchandise, but not able to unload it, and just lost money that way. But anyway, after a few weeks, though, we felt like we have to do something. Our store managers were getting antsy. They're like, we need to do something. We can't sit here anymore and just let you guys have to do all the work. So we figured out how to do curbside. And it was kind of hard for us because we don't have all of our items online, and nor could we do that because we do a lot of closeout business. So, the amount of effort to put our thousands and thousands of items online all at once was pretty difficult. So, but our employees are amazing. Customers would call, they'd literally be on the phone with them and shop for them, be the personal shopper. So that worked out well. It was good to get back into the swing of things. And it also let us kind of get everyone together and all together figure out all the safety protocols and everything that we had to do. Because if you've been in multiple stores of ours, they're all different. They all have different challenges. How do you keep 6 feet apart in an aisle that's 3 feet wide? It's tough. So then we really, once we had the curbside going, we worked on reopening. We reopened late April. We kind of did a phased reopening, did some stores at first, and kind of went through there. But yeah, the hardest part, I think, was really the mask issue. That was tough. We and our employees overwhelmingly felt that for our safety, but also to be able to continue to operate as a business, we could not have cases with our employees or with our customers. So we had to do everything we could do. So we were probably one of the first big retailers to actually turn people away for not wearing a mask. And as hard as that was and difficult, it was worth it. It was the right thing to do. Sometimes you got to do the tough things. But the part that upsets me the most is that our employees on the front line, greeters at the door, they would get berated day in and day out. And it would make me so mad because you shouldn't be yelling at them. You should be yelling at me. I made that decision. You didn't, and this person didn't. Our employees didn't. I made the decision, and we really had to stand up for them. We had calls and emails, all this stuff that were just ridiculous. So it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And I myself I went to a lot of our stores and was with the greeter for a day just to give them support. But yeah, it was really hard. But I think in the end, especially this past Christmas season, you found so many comments that, Renys is the only place I feel safe shopping. We had so many comments like that. So, the big lesson for me is you gotta, stand by what you believe in. And when you make a decision, you gotta be all in, and you just gotta do it right. And eventually, through all the noise and all the negativity, you get a positive outcome. So some of the other challenges, though, obviously, when someone's sick or has a cold now, they have to stay home, and we want them to, obviously. But then you get really short-staffed at the stores sometime. A couple months ago, right before Christmas, our Bridgeton store, we had to have 10 to 12 employees out, including the managers. So I was up there a few days. We pulled managers from other stores. We pulled employees from other stores. So it was a challenge, but again, our employees are amazing, so they all pulled together to make it happen. Another thing that continues to be a tough challenge is getting merchandise. The supply chain is really screwed up. Containers have gone up $2,000 to $4,000 a container from China and other places. So that increased your costs and everything, but it also takes a long time to get here. For instance, Carhartt, which is our #1 product, they were having a 60-day delay on shipping from the time you ordered it. Wow. So if you've ever been in Farmington Renys this past Christmas, if I was out of something, it wasn't my fault, it was Carhartt's fault. So, but it just makes your job as a buyer so much harder. Like, how do you source this stuff? And luckily we have great relationships with our vendors. A lot of our off-price vendors, we'll just say, this is what we're looking for. Let us know if you find it, and we'll be the first call. And that's how we found a lot of our PPE stuff. They found it for us, and we snatched it right up. So we're very lucky to have those relationships too. So those are the major things. Freight deliveries are still an issue. I'll order a pair of Carhartt pants, full size run. I'll get one size, 6 pieces one day, and the next week I'll get another 6 pieces. It's hard to control your inventory when it's that sporadic and that crazy. So, and lastly, probably the most annoying thing is we used to go to, probably 30, 40 trade shows a year. And now we're doing them all over Zoom. And it's hard. One, you get pretty seasick from someone on the other end is moving a camera around and looking at hundreds of products. But yeah, it's been a challenge in that respect too. And also those relationships we have with those people. My uncle, all his great friends, he's the president of the company, John Rennie. All his friends are all these vendors that we see at these shows, and he's really definitely missed that relationship. And so have I. But basically, we really kind of, we listened to all the facts, we read all the news, we listened to the governor, and all of our decisions, though, were really something that we just internalized and really got our crew together, our staff together, and really said, what do we want to do to make this work for you guys? And, we pulled through, and we're very thankful for what we have. Our employees are amazing. Mainers are amazing. Really, even all of our customers just, they've been just so nice to us, and just, they see the people yelling at us, in the store for having to make other people wear masks, but they come up to us and they say, thank you for what you're doing. So we're very lucky to have what we have and be a part of the Maine community, and with all you guys. So, everyone who's been a part of this or had to, take care of an employee or help a neighbor or whatever, it's all a big family here. So it's great to be a part of it.
Adam, thank you so much. Clearly there's a common theme here, and it's for me, it's courage and commitment to self, to staff, to customers, to your ability to serve the community. Each of you is expressed that. Very powerful, and definitely a reason behind your success. We can do Q&As, or I'm not seeing, are you seeing, Morgan, are you seeing anything in the chat?
I'm not just yet.
Okay, so
I had a quick question, Charlie. For
Kat, please go.
Kind of mentioned a lot, or a number of people mentioned, kind of ending up with increased increased customers this year. And I was wondering, were people seeing them from a different customer base than previous years? Like, are people coming from other locations or different places?
Actually, our smaller stores in northern Maine, Dexter, Madison, Farmington is one of them, Pittsfield. We've actually seen increases in those areas where usually they're, not our best stores, because, our coastal stores, our tourist stores, our bigger stores are much better. But a lot of our managers say that real estate up there is just flying off the shelf. And we have people from away coming in and buying all their sheets and their blankets and their pillows and their cookware and all that stuff. So we're seeing a lot of new customers in those areas. And in fact, the areas that usually were better because of tourists and stuff aren't doing as well. So you see a lot of people moving into central and northern Maine a lot more. We're seeing that in our sales for sure.
I think that places, and of course Franklin County will be affected, but Rangeley, I think we're going to experience more Maincations. I don't think consumer confidence for greater airline travel and those type of things is going to be there yet. Although we are in the being in the museum business, a lot of people just assumed we are flat out closed when 90% of the museums were. Folks were actually surprised that we are there. We made the decision to open because we felt we were important to the business community and our local economy, because Rangeley is seen as such a historic place and we celebrate that history. So when I was having the arguments with my board of directors on whether we were going to be open or not, my number one argument was what we do supports the brand that is Rangeley. And I think more and more folks are going to be moving internally. I normally go bone fishing in Abaco every year, and I could probably get a vaccination or a test. I love going there, but we're just not going because we don't want to be in an airport and we don't want to be on an airplane. So, and I think a lot of people want to invest in Maine that live in Maine now. And our friends in New Hampshire will probably do the same.
I will say we definitely saw people from away coming here. And when I said that the decision not to have picnic tables or anything like that out this summer was a hard, but I think a good decision, is because there was so much through traffic. I mean, there were days where we saw license plates from 20 different states in our parking lot. So yeah, it's crazy and continues to be. Like, we are seeing a lot of unfamiliar faces. So locals are staying away for now, which makes us super sad, but we understand why, for sure. And it definitely makes us feel more confident about our decisions and how, in the capacity in which we open, for sure. I would say, so the 80-20 rule with 20% of your customer base makes up 80% of your revenue. If you're a small local business, like, your locals keep you afloat. I would say that has switched for COVID, for sure, throughout COVID.
We definitely saw a huge change in where people were coming from and how they were booking as well. What we used to see typically were people who were doing like a tour of New England, driving through the White Mountains or up the coast of Maine, passing through Western Maine. They'd spend a night or two here, continue on. And we saw a lot more people making reservations for 4, 5, 6, 7 nights and spending their entire time away in Rangeley rather than jumping around to different places. I think that due to the concerns about safety, people are just more comfortable with settling into one spot and staying there rather than jumping around between different hotels. And then we also saw people from all over the country. We did see a lot of in-state visitation as well. That was particularly early in the summer. But then as the season continued on, and I think people realized that this wasn't ending, and they were just going to have to figure out how to work with the state's travel guidelines, then they put the effort in and they figured out how to make it happen, and decided to still take their trip to Maine. And one thing though is we were seeing people who, in a lot of cases, had never been to Rangeley before. And so, I mean, it's just a hypothesis, but when this was all happening, if you looked at the map and you looked at where it was red and where it was, you know, a really light shade of very few cases, this part of Maine was in that really light shade. And people might have just been looking at the map and saying, hey, let's go there. It's safe there. We did have some people who came from Vermont, which had a really strict protocol about which counties you could travel to in other states without having to quarantine when going back to Vermont. And Franklin was one of those counties. So we had people come and stay with us specifically for that reason as well.
Our farm has a few pick fields, and so we saw a great mix of out-of-staters and also locals as well. And so it was. I think that being at our store too, I hear of a lot of people moving into the area. I hear a lot of people from like Auburn and Augusta actually coming up this way, just getting out of town. So I think it's exciting for rural Maine right now. I think it's I think that we're kind of safer, if you will. And so Lord willing here, people will see the beauty of the area and will continue to come and visit.
Great question. Great answers. Thank you. Let's see, the chat is not seeing any other questions.
I had a question and a comment, Charlie, if you mind.
Go for it, Brent.
So the High Peaks Alliance works in conservation recreation, and so we keep a close eye on real estate. And as Adam alluded to, there's been a 30% increase in Franklin County's land sales this year. And what we're noticing and seeing is that it's not necessarily we are a destination, it's that there's a huge amount of people leaving cities. School enrollments are high in all our rural areas. And what's happening is a lot of these people aren't finding their way into our communities because of the social distancing. And there hasn't been a warm reception, so they're finding places to interact. And it seems like we're also losing some access to land. As an example, if you drive into Farmington, you'll see that big ridge line that comes down from Mount Blue. And that was a 1,700 acre parcel that sold within 3 months of being listed. And we're seeing that trend across the region. So put in perspective, Google mobility reports have shown a 300% increase in open space use. Maine State Parks has record-breaking highest use they've ever seen ever. Trail counter organizations across the state have marked anywhere from 50 to 70% increases in trails. So it was really interesting to hear. I think some of the businesses that talk have a real obvious connection to our natural resources. But the one thing we're seeing is that there's many towns across the region that would like to execute some of these projects, but they don't have the resources anymore. So it makes me wonder, what do you as the business owners think your clients are looking for when they come here? And how do we better involve these new people in the community? And maybe it's us helping you guys distribute information or vice versa. because there seems to be a lot of very talented people coming here to weather the storm, and they're making decisions whether it's on be a long-term commitment or not. And I think there's a real opportunity in this next year to capture a lot of these talented people and integrate them into our culture of access to natural resources and keeping the area beautiful. So I was just really interested to hear how our landscape and our natural resources might be important to your businesses or not.
Brent, fascinating perspective. Let's hear from the panelists.
From our perspective, it's everything. I mean, in the Outdoor Heritage Museum, we cover the history of the human use of the natural resources in the region. And, you know, from the mid 19th century up until today, I mean, we're Western Maine's a nationally recognized brand. I think that there's a resurgence in that, and folks want the added value presented by, I want a place that will give me the Alamo to escape whatever this is or how long it's going to last. But I also want the added value of that original vacation property, and they're jumping out of other investments and doing that. And that's why we're seeing this boom. And it is going to create stressors. And I think it's a great point by Brent. You know, how do we manage some of this growth that's going to take place? I think it's still going to happen. And you know, another thing is what's the duration, and where we are in this program is still the unknown. We're still planning and budgeting in a way that things aren't going to change much until customer confidence increases in probably July at the earliest. That's halfway through our busy time. So there's a lot of things to think about. But Brent makes the same point, is how do we engage these people to respect and enjoy these resources that are our bread and butter in Western Maine.
I think I should probably speak to it as well, since, you know, as a lodging establishment, we definitely rely on the natural resources, and that's one of the things that we promote in order to attract people here. And it is one of the things that draws people here as second homeowners or for relocation as well. I think it's how do we connect people to better use of those resources, and how do we direct resources to developing them? It's a very good question, and I would have to put a lot more thought into it. But I think that maybe a starting point is more exposure for the organizations that are maintaining those lands, or that are promoting the use of those lands. So for example, here in Rangeley, we have the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust. We're really fortunate in that their office is literally right across the street from the inn. So it's easy for us when, you know, in a non-COVID period, when the office is open to the public, to direct people there for information, and that helps them to understand the organization better and connect with them, and perhaps become involved or donate. But during this period, that's not something that's possible. So perhaps like if we were to work with them on like informational resources, maps, but something that we could do to encourage people to actually make contributions towards the organization. You know, it's something that I think warrants looking into. And like I said, I still have to wrap my head around that one, but it makes a lot of sense because we do rely on those resources, like promoting the different trails in the area, Smalls Falls as a beautiful attraction to visit, the Height of Land, just all the hiking and boating opportunities. I mean, that's what draws a lot of people here. So we do have to ensure that as there's more traffic to those places, that everything is treated respectfully and properly maintained.
And the one thing I would add is it just seems like a real connection between all of us. It seems like the one thing that we miss out as a region is we're very compartmentalized in like the Rangeley being Rangeley, the Eustis and Carrabassett being the Eustis and Carrabassett and Kingfield area, and then Farmington. And I really see a cultural disconnect between Southern Franklin County and Northern Franklin County. And it seems like looking at the resilience there and the connections we can make, because my assertion is that there's a whole lot of people that care about this neck of the woods that don't necessarily live here. So I would say like our goal is to look at how to link our resources or outside resources to community projects. And like an example in Farmington, we're trying to work in some accessible trails, which I think would keep people in town longer and maybe shop at stores and give them more opportunities to make a trip of it and also do that safely. So, you know, just I think it makes a lot of sense what Travis said and what Bill said too. I just wanted to follow up with that second point.
May I ask a question, please?
Go for it.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be part of this tonight. My name is Steve Philbrick. I live over here in Aquasic. I'm the old guy with the beard here. Got an awful lot of experience in hotel and restaurant, travel and tourism. But I want you all to think of something and don't let this go very far from you. As we see the influx and we pay attention to the statistical data that's been pointed out here tonight, the requirements for each of the communities that the gentleman by the name, I think your name is Brent, you sound very, very knowledgeable. I want to have a nice conversation with you in the future. But our municipalities, I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen here in Rangeley, and I only tell you that because we are going to experience in all of the communities that you mentioned a great deal of requirements from these people who are finding new homes in Western Maine. And we may not be able to afford it unless we start to plan. And one of the things I have not heard here tonight is how do we plan to handle some of the trials and tribulations that will result from this huge influx. And Bill will tell you, and Travis will tell you that Rangeley's face is changing. I'm fortunate. I get to travel around a little bit in the Western Maine, and I'd like to hear from Adam on this as well too, and how he feels. But if we don't prepare ourselves, it's going to be very difficult for not only us to hang on to our businesses. I love all of the new ideas. The stories are fabulous. You all are young. I envy you. I wish I had another 20 years to do this. I don't, but be thinking about that and be thinking about how we mold what we have in front of us so that it can withstand these new pressures. Because what I hear in my meetings, well, back home, this is how we do it. Well, you came here because we did it differently. And we have to find a way to hold on to that. Thank you for letting me say that.
Steve, thank you for that. You know, you may have just given us something meaty for our next forum to tackle, because we've allocated an hour for this forum, and I want to make sure, be mindful of everyone's time. But Steve, thank you for that. I think we've got something we can move to.
I wanted to share one with you. I'm a member of the Sporting Camp Association. And when this pandemic started, we had in excess of 200 members. We don't anymore. We have 150 or a little bit more. And that's another change that, because of political mismanagement, whatever, we're seeing business models change. We're seeing properties change and so on and so forth. So thank you again. And I won't interrupt anymore.
Okay. Food for thought. Thank you, Steve. We have I mentioned at the beginning, we have a bonus panelist here, an attorney, Jordan Hay. She's here to, if any of these conversations have been thought-provoking or you've got questions, she's here to be a resource. And so I want to make an introduction, give her a couple minutes. Before I do that, we had one question from Andrea on hospitality, on food. Andrea, you want to ask your question?
Hi. Yes, thank you. So this is in response to what Joel and Polly shared a little bit about well-being during this time. And I think one thing we've probably all noticed is that specifically with food establishments, that hours have really been cut down. And while I know that for some people, for some customers, that's been frustrating, I've also been thinking a lot about how in some ways, it must be really nice for business owners to have those reduced hours just in general. I think most business owners are probably pretty overworked most days. And I'm wondering if that is something that maybe, Polly, you might envision keeping some reduced hours even after the pandemic.
So I don't know. It has been really nice, and our business has not suffered for it. We're doing about the same amount of business during the 3 days that we're open as we were doing during 5 days of being open last winter. Our sales are just about on par for last winter so far. So if we're doing more in less time, it would be a hard sell for sure to pick up those other 2 days. However, serving more people has been on our minds. We get people in the driveway, people calling constantly on the days that we're closed. So that's hard for us because we want to certainly serve as many people as we can. Additionally, we could hire more people. So that's a consideration. But definitely for right now, definitely through the rest of the winter, we'll be having reduced hours, and possibly through next summer. I'm not sure. That's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but thank you.
I don't like to commit during these COVID times.
Charlie?
To a solid answer.
Not everybody has their camera on, but this all begs the question. I, for one, I'm working more hours than I did prior to COVID. And I'm just wondering, a show of hands, how many people are working more hours since COVID? See, to me, that just shows the diversity of the business models and the variance in the business models. There's a wide range of products, of course, and how people operate. I know some businesses in Aquasic, and I think Steve's one of them. He's got demand that he could fill, but he's got to give his people a day off. Is that true, Steve? So, I mean, I know there's several that would be open more often if they could find the help. And as all the, and Brent mentioned a factor about all these people coming in, the prices of real estate are going up. So when you get these small rural communities, how are we going to take care of a workforce? Steve's been banging this drum long before COVID. How do we find a place that's an affordable rent where somebody can come and enjoy these wonderful resort communities around Sugarloaf and Saddleback and our lakes and mountains when they can't find a place that's affordable to live at? And that's a huge factor that's kind of changing. All these new folks are wonderful, good fortune financially, but on the workforce end of things, it's a biggie.
Just to quickly expand on my answer to Andrea, our workload hasn't lessened, it's just changed. So the way that we budget our time is differently. So we're having to work, I would say the same, but we're just able to manage it a little bit differently, which allows us for some time off, which is fantastic.
I think Polly has some great boundaries. You and your husband, congratulations. It sounds like I need to take some lessons.
Amen.
This is my second year at our business is 10 years old, but we had our farm stand on Crash Road in Livermore. Then we just went to the center of town. We did a lot of renovations. We have a lot of bills and that kind of stuff. So I was very reluctant to adjust hours. And so I didn't. So I just kept them the same. We're 6 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then 7 to 4 on Saturday. We take Sunday off. I think that I look back and it was a double-edged sword. I think there were some positives and negatives to it for sure. But I did come out of it learning something. So I think it's what you can manage and what you can handle, and the amount of risk that you think you're willing to take. I think you just kind of follow the needs of your people, your community, and your family, and just somehow find a balance in there. I think that's what everybody just kind of needs to do during this time. So.
Joel, thank you for that. I'm going to switch us over to Jordan and give her a second to speak. Jordan, you still there?
I am. I'll be very brief because I want to, be respectful of everyone's time. I left my contact info. If anyone has a question they would prefer to just email me or call me about. I, like many of you, all of a sudden experienced a sharp uptick in work in March when all of a sudden Congress decided to pass the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And instead of saying employers like Walmart with more than 500 to 1,000 people, the small businesses can handle this. So I have a lot of clients that I've been advising throughout this, and now of course with the new administration there's going to be a lot of new changes, and we're sort of waiting to see what happens there. And of course Maine has a new sick leave law, so a lot of fun for me, not so fun for employers with great ideas and innovative thinking. And I'm so grateful to have been able to be a part of this conversation and hear what everyone is doing. I'm a sugar loafer, although I'm from away, but I've been going to Sugarloaf for a long time. And so I always have to convince my husband to stop at rolling Fatties on the way there back. I recognize, many people here too that we've answered some questions for here and there. So if anything should pop up, I know that people have so many things to deal with. And like someone said, I think it was Bill, we don't really know what the end of this looks like. And, I have found that helping people navigate sort of the new normal and what that means, vaccinations, what does that mean for our employees, is really rewarding and tiring. I will say it's been, a long year. So anyway, thank you very much, Charlie and Morgan, for having me, and for all of you for sharing your experiences. I personally feel like I've learned a lot. So certainly feel free to reach out to me. I work at Skelton Taylor and Abbott in Auburn. And I do practice primarily employment law. So this is very exciting to meet all of you who actually are employers and are fighting the good fight. That's all for me.
Jordan, thanks very much. Good to have you.
Thank you. Obviously,
right.
Everyone, needs to go, but I can answer a question or two here if there is a desire, but don't need to.
All right, we've got your contact info. I appreciate that. Being mindful of everyone's time, we are 26 minutes over schedule, and we knew we'd be a couple minutes because we were anticipating these rich conversations and examples. So thank you one and all. It would be wonderful if we could get a reaction on what you felt about this whole forum. And I think it might be helpful if we sent maybe a simple survey, or you could offer up your comments. And it would help us design whatever we have coming up, should we have something coming up. So listening to everybody, it sounds like some good topics. Steve and Brent have given us food for thought, as well as the rest of the panelists. Thank you very much. And for Greater Franklin Development Council, I really want to thank each of our panelists. It's just been tremendous. Bill, Travis, Polly, Joel, great to meet you. Great to hear your story. And Adam, thank you for taking your time this midweek evening. So, and thanks to Kat and Morgan for pulling this off.